been almost 2 weeks since the start of the new season, and it's time to talk about how it affects Aurora. Yo, and welcome to a new video. I did a bunch of testing on the new items, and here are my findings. Actualizer is underwhelming, to say the least. I was actually hyped for this item since I thought there might be some cool interaction like building only Ludens and still dealing good amount of damage, and maybe even building Ludens, Actualizer, and Malignance in the same build, and potentially the damage might spike hard on 3 items. I even tested out, now hear me out, Ludens, Actualizer, and Muramana. Well, not in an actual game since when I did the testing, the damage was just straight up lacking. Do not build this item on Aurora as it is right now, since it's just way too gimmicky and straight up worse than the other normal builds. The skin down was an item that a lot of people were wanting to see added to the game since it kinda makes sense on Aurora, right? Well, yeah, it makes sense until you realize that the passive portion doesn't work on her. Was that intended? Well, since it isn't hotfixed yet, I assume so. So with that being the case, I don't think there's even any point in trying the item, since you lose a huge reason why you build it in the first place. Now, there's also a second reason why this item is not that good. The skin down sheen effect actually only scales off of 10% of your AP, which in comparison to its direct competitor, Lichbane, makes it kinda underwhelming. And we already know that Lichbane is not built a whole lot, only in some gimmicky, forced situations. Final verdict, even though the stats are actually pretty good, unless at least the passive is made to work on Aurora, this item stays on the shelf. For now. Next up is Gunblade, and this is the item I have the most to say about. So first of all, why Gunblade? The main reason is the active. Clicking it on someone will dish out pretty good damage, which also procs Electrocute and First Strike. As an added bonus, the slow will also make it easier for you to land your combo. That's why the AP is not necessarily a bad amount, though the AD is kinda wasted. The Omnivamp though actually feels quite nice since when you do get a trait with someone, you can heal back most of the HP back on the next wave. It's also pretty relevant when you're trying to side lane for long periods of time. There are a few downsides to this item though. Obviously not providing any magic pen, mana, or ability haste. It needs to be rushed as a first item, and also you need to use it with Electrocute or First Strike. There are also some bigger problems with it. For instance, you're actually animation locked from using it together with your Q2, E, or ult. And this was pretty problematic since later on it actually botches your combo and you're really sluggish. And that's not even its biggest problem. The biggest one you've already probably seen in one of my previous videos, which is its components. Alternator and Amplifying Tome are pretty good, but Vampiric Scepter existing is completely useless on Aurora. If you do decide to try Gunblade, ideally you would never go back and buy a Vampiric Scepter, rather go back when you have the gold for the full item, which makes some games extremely awkward. This is why Gunblade is so cursed, man. Look at my inventory, it's supposed to be an item. So with all that information, is it a good item? For the most part, no. You should absolutely not be building it in every game for 30 games like I did. That was for science. But I do think it has a place in the niche and specific playstyle that you can enforce in some of your games. That niche situation being if you want a one item power spike that lets you 1v1 enemies mainly on the side lane. It actually surprised me how easy it allowed me to beat some champions like Jace that generally you struggle beating 1v1. It's also not a bad item against Kassadin. The longsword you can get early on can be quite useful since it's all about putting him as behind as possible, and the auto attack damage does add up. Just remember that your damage will have a downfall after around 5 minutes due to the lack of stats that you're losing from any of the other starter items. So to make the most out of it, you need to apply side lane pressure by forcing 1v1s against the opposing split pusher, taking plates if he decides to roam too much, or if he's way too passive and sitting under his tower, you need to be the one looking for good moments on the map. But wait, Aurora is supposed to be a strictly teamfight champion. Why am I even mentioning this? She still is, and you're still going to win almost every game through doing that. But with Gunblade, there's no real other way to use it effectively, specifically on Aurora, and this season going for a plate on the side lane tier 2 tower is honestly good to do from time to time. But more on that later. Gunblade is a very niche item, similar to Rocket Belt. I don't advise building it outside of its own instance on when it's good. But even then, you might just be better off playing regular Aurora and looking to teamfight. I will personally test it more in the future. Surprisingly though, the new season did bring us some new potential item upgrades that don't have any AP written on them. Hicks is something I built on Aurora even last season. You want to get it when you need a cheap source of tankiness and ability haste. It also has a semi-useful passive for your ult, but now this season it also received a buff that gives you even further ult cooldown reduction. I take that as a win for the Zeke enjoyers. But now we also have another candidate for the same slot, but instead of giving you the ult slow, it buffs your teammates' attack speed. Bando Pipes is a really cool addition to the game. Its best selling point is being even cheaper than Zeke's and providing some useful overall stats. Build it over Zeke's if you have teammates that use the attack speed well. But I do want to add a small disclaimer here that I personally wouldn't build these two items below Master Elo outside of just having a bit of fun and very specific conditions. Remember, damage is king, especially in an environment where your teammates have the tendency to run it down. You being the main carry in terms of damage in all of your games is the most consistent route, but given the context and variables, you should consider all of your options. That was mostly for items. There are a few more that I might end up experimenting with, but for now let's move on to the season changes that impacted Aurora. The overall pace of the game has increased, which I would say benefits her. Sieging and split pushing has become more prevalent, which you might think is bad for her, but I don't think it has that big of an impact. It just means you need to reevaluate your priorities in certain cases. You're more inclined to grab side lane gold if your opponent makes a clumsy move on the map. Unlike last season, now you get gold by just hitting the tower and getting plays from it, whereas before a lot of times you just recall and reposition for a potential pick on an enemy champion since you didn't get gold unless you took the full turret. And just having more gold on the map accelerates the game and honestly makes it more interesting. Now for the bread and butter, quests. I've been asked a lot on which I think is the better of the two main ones, top or mid. Mid so far is my favorite quest and it just so happens to be Aurora's better role. So overall, mid Aurora mains should be eating good. I really enjoy the power spike you get from the tier 3 boot upgrade, and playing around an enhanced recall gives me a feel of an old friend that I can't seem to find anywhere. Even though mid lane quest in my opinion is the better one for her, top lane quest is not bad either. Winning top lane right now does feel really impactful since you'll be quite in the lead in terms of levels. Of course top lane is top lane and winning your lane is still the most important factor, but now at least you're rewarded more for it. Overall, I do see a clear distinction in how it feels to play each role, so I think Riot did a good job at this. Bot lane Aurora still haven't gotten a chance to try, but we'll do so on stream eventually. Make sure you join me on the adventure. I do think the quest is mildly interesting, but the top and mid one are for sure better. For summoner spells, I do think mid should always run teleport. Yes, I know there's a stronger home guard and minion waves are different faster. Doesn't matter. Teleport is the best summoner spell after Flash. It's consistent, it saves you from mistakes, it's proactive, flexible, and it wins you games. For top lane now, you can make an argument to go something else like Ignite, Exhaust, Ghost Barrier, or Heal in some games since you get a free TP after you complete the quest. But the problem is this TP is quite on a big cooldown and you really do need the teleport for the early game. I will be experimenting more with this, but my advice is to only go Ignite in matchups where you need it. aka Vlad is a good one, or maybe Exhaust against Riven or Jace. Just go for TP if you're facing an easy or tanky matchup. Of course, everything I said is my opinion, and it's still pretty early to say, but I did want to give you my take after I played a decent bit in the new season. I've mentioned this in the past and it's no secret anymore, but I will be making a new guide for Aurora since I do think my old one is pretty good in terms of knowledge, but there's new stuff that I've learned the past year and I also could have done much better editing wise. Thank you for watching as always, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, I'm not saying it's OP, but you know, the most reverse Aurora build.